My mom forgot to save dessert for my son at Thanksgiving, said. He didn't earn it after the way he acted. My sister's kids got seconds. I helped my son with his coat and we left. At 10:13 p.m. Dad texted, transfer the mortgage tomorrow. I didn't argue, I don't know what's lower than humiliating your own grandchild to make a point, but whatever it is, my parents might already be there. It's one thing to play favorites. I've gotten used to that over the years. Watching my mom light up when my sister walks in, or hearing my dad call my brother's kids his real legacy. I've tolerated the subtle digs, the eye rolls when I mention anything Ethan does well, the way they brush past us in the hallway like we're visitors in their museum of golden grandchildren. But this was deliberate. They've always treated me like a failed experiment. I was the firstborn, the quiet kid who turned out to be inconvenient. I wasn't rebellious, I just started saying no. I stopped asking them to care about things they didn't. They wanted control. I gave them distance. And they never forgave me for it. It got worse after my divorce. I didn't cry on their couch or beg for help. I moved out, found a job that paid enough and bought my own house. They hated that part. Hated that they couldn't dangle money over my head. My dad offered to wrap my mortgage into the family trust, said it would streamline things, but I knew what that meant. He wanted his name on the deed. He wanted control. I politely declined. Ever since then, he's treated my financial independence like an insult. My brother Ryan sees it. He even said once, you know you're the only one they can't manipulate? That's why they act like you're invisible. And he's right. He's not part of the problem, but he doesn't always step in either. Thanksgiving was the final push. We got there early, me and Ethan, because Ethan had helped make cranberry sauce and wanted to show my mom. She smiled politely, barely looked at it, and placed it behind her store-bought dish on the counter. I didn't say anything. I never do. Dinner was the usual chaos. My sister's kids got first pick of everything. My dad opened wine he said was only for grown-ups who know how to appreciate it, but then poured a glass for my sister's 12-year-old because she's mature for her age. Ethan asked why there weren't mashed potatoes this year. He wasn't rude about it, just curious, and my mom laughed and said because some people don't need any more starch. It was directed at him. I felt it. So we made it through dinner. Ethan was excited for dessert. He loves my mom's pumpkin cheesecake. He even helped set the dessert plates. My sister's kids got their slices first, of course. Big ones. They were already halfway through when the tray came back to my mom. Ethan stood there waiting. Smiling. She didn't even glance at him. Just said without blinking he didn't earn dessert after the way he acted. The room went quiet for a second. One of my sister's twins asked for seconds. He got them. Ethan turned to me and whispered, "It's okay." That was the part that got me. I grabbed his coat, helped him into it in silence and walked out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. Got home, made him a mug of hot cocoa and let him eat the backup cookies we'd made the night before. At 10:13 p.m. my phone lit up. A text from my dad. Transfer the mortgage tomorrow. Don't be late. No question. No explanation. Like the night hadn't happened. I didn't respond. Just stared at the screen until it dimmed again. And I sat there thinking about how many times I'd excused this kind of behavior. How many holidays I'd let slide because that's just how they are. But watching my son be dismissed like that, on purpose for no reason, I felt something inside me finally go still. I transferred the mortgage the next morning. But not the way he expected. And definitely not for his benefit. Because if they wanted to cut me out, they were about to find out what that really looked like. I didn't hear from them the next day. Not a text, not a call to ask if Ethan was okay. It was like nothing had happened. My dad got his precious mortgage transfer, and in his mind that meant everything was settled. My mom posted photos of the dinner table online with captions about family, gratitude, and love. Love. The word almost made me laugh. That night, I kept replaying the look on Ethan's face when she told him he hadn't earned dessert. The way he accepted it, quiet and polite, like he already knew arguing wouldn't change anything. I think that was the moment I stopped making excuses for them. 2 days later, Ethan had a soccer game. Ryan showed up, same as always, with his youngest in tow. He's the only one in my family who consistently shows up for us, even when he doesn't have to. After the game, when the kids ran off to chase each other, he finally asked what happened at Thanksgiving. He said Mom had told everyone that Ethan had acted out, and that she was teaching him respect. I asked if he believed that. He just shook his head. He said he'd seen the way she talked to Ethan before, and that he didn't buy her version for a second. Then he said something that caught me off guard. Tell me what you want me to do. Not what happened, not how can I help, but what do you want me to do? It sounded like he'd already decided to take my side. He was just waiting for direction. I told him the truth, I was done. Done with the guilt trips, the financial strings, the pretending. I said I wanted to cut ties completely, even if that meant walking away from the family trust. Ryan didn't even blink. He said he understood. He told me that he and his wife had noticed how mom and dad acted toward me and Ethan for years, but they didn't want to interfere. I told him they didn't have to interfere, just stop protecting them from consequences. That night while I was putting Ethan to bed, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. It was a photo of my sister's kids, smiling with forks in their hands, holding up the leftover cheesecake like trophies. Under it she'd written, "Next time maybe Ethan will earn a slice." I stared at it for a full minute, trying to decide if she was trying to be cruel or if she really thought that was funny. Either way, it didn't matter. I didn't show Ethan. I deleted the photo and blocked her number for the night. The next morning I called Ryan. I told him I wanted out of everything tied to our parents. The trust account, the family investments, the mortgage link, all of it. If they wanted to act like I didn't belong, then they were about to find out what that really meant. He agreed without hesitation. Said he'd talk to the family attorney and make it official. I could hear the weight in his voice, not pity but finality. By midweek my dad called twice. I didn't answer either time. The voicemail he left sounded rehearsed, like a mix between disappointment and control. He said he'd noticed some movement in the accounts, and wanted to make sure there weren't any misunderstandings. There were no misunderstandings. For the first time in my life I was completely clear. I opened my laptop that night and started writing everything down. Every little thing they'd done to belittle me or Ethan. Every backhanded comment disguised as advice. Every time I'd been told I was too sensitive, too cold, too ungrateful. I wasn't writing it for them. I was writing it so I'd never forget why I was doing this. Thanksgiving wasn't just the last straw. It was the proof I needed. They thought I'd swallow it again, pretend it was fine, show up at Christmas smiling like always. But not this time. This time I wasn't going to play nice. About a week after Thanksgiving, my mom sent out one of her classic group emails. Subject line, "Christmas plans," with enough exclamation points to make it look like a celebration instead of damage control. She listed everything like nothing had happened. Who was bringing what time dinner would be served, how she wanted everyone to wear matching sweaters this year for family unity. No mention of Ethan. No mention of what she said to him. No acknowledgement that we'd walked out. She signed it off with some nonsense about letting go of past tension and starting fresh, for the sake of the grandchildren. That was her version of an apology, painting herself as the peacemaker while sweeping her cruelty under the rug. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. 2 days later Ryan called me. Said he'd met with the family's attorney just like we talked about. The trust could be split, technically difficult but not impossible. We'd each get control over our portions, and once mine was moved out, my parents would lose any say over how I used it. I said yes without thinking twice. Ryan hesitated, said he wanted me to know Dad was already aware. He'd gotten wind of the request through the firm. Apparently, Dad called the attorney personally and tried to delay the paperwork, said I was being emotional, and that this would blow over if she calms down. He called me emotional. That was his defense. Like this was all hormones and spite and not 30+ years of being treated like a second-class daughter. Ryan sent me a copy of the email. My dad had CC'd him but not me. In it he said the words, "Laura is unstable right now. Please don't take irreversible actions based on a temporary outburst." I read that line 3 times. He didn't say I was hurt. He didn't say I had a point. He said I was unstable. I sat with that for a while. Later that night Ryan texted me and asked again, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I texted back, "Absolutely. And don't just do it for me. Do it so your kids don't grow up thinking this is normal." He didn't reply for a few minutes. Then I got, "We're not going to Christmas either." That's when it started to shift. I wasn't just the difficult daughter anymore. I was the one who finally broke the spell. But of course my parents didn't let it go. My mom tried to call 3 times in one day. I ignored all of them. She finally sent a text that said, "I don't know what kind of lies Ryan is feeding you, but you're letting him destroy this family." Lies. Destroy. Classic her. No admission, no responsibility, just a desperate grab for the narrative. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I just forwarded it to Ryan, who replied with a single line, "She's scared." She should be. My sister messaged me next. Said Mom was acting weird and kept crying in the kitchen, and Dad was pacing like he was preparing for battle. She asked what was really going on and said she hoped we weren't overreacting about that dessert thing. I asked her one question. "Did you see what Mom did to Ethan at Thanksgiving?" She didn't answer. "Did you see the look on his face? Did you even ask why we left early?" Still nothing. I let it sit. She hasn't messaged since. A few nights later, just after dinner, someone knocked on the door. It was almost dark out. Ethan was finishing his homework at the table. I looked through the peephole. It was my dad. I didn't open it. He knocked again. Harder this time. I stood there watching him shift his weight, frustrated, not used to being ignored. Ethan asked who it was. I said, nobody important. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just saying it out of anger. I wasn't trying to convince myself. I had finally stopped needing anything from them. And that terrified them more than anything else ever could. By the time Christmas week rolled around, I had assumed they'd give up. They'd tried guilt, control, silence, even public shaming. I thought maybe when none of that worked, they'd finally let it go. They didn't. On the morning of December 21st, I got a knock at the door. Certified mail. It was a thick envelope with my dad's name on the return address. Not handwritten, printed. Inside was a copy of a letter from their accountant, stapled to a typed note from my dad. The letter was about my trust split and the serious tax complications that can arise from emotionally motivated decisions. In bold, we strongly advise against sudden actions that could affect family property and long-term equity. I read the whole thing in my kitchen while Ethan sat at the table gluing pieces of felt to a school project. I didn't say anything. I just folded the letter, slipped it back in the envelope and dropped it in the trash. They still thought I was bluffing. That if they dragged it out long enough, if they layered on just the right amount of financial pressure, I'd cave. But they were pushing too hard. And worse, they were underestimating me. I sent a photo of the letter to Ryan. He called 5 minutes later. He didn't bother with small talk. Just said, hey. So, there's something you need to see. He emailed me a scan of a document I hadn't seen before. An old amendment to the lake house agreement. It was the property they'd remodeled into some grand second home. Apparently, 10 years ago when I helped them with part of the down payment, they added me as a partial co-signer. Temporarily, they said. But no one ever took my name off. And they forgot. Ryan had seen the paperwork when helping with his own refinancing, and that's when it hit him. If I was still on the deed, they couldn't do anything major with the lake house. Sell it, rent it, transfer ownership without my written consent. Then he said something I didn't expect. They're trying to lease it to a company this summer. Big money. Like 5 figures a month. It's already in talks. I was silent. Not because I was surprised by them trying to profit off it, but because they never said a word. No mention. No courtesy heads up. Not even a fake offer to cut me in. He asked, do you want to block it? I said, absolutely. He sent me the contact info for the property management company, and I emailed them a statement of partial ownership and a copy of the original deed. I let them know I wasn't authorizing commercial use and wouldn't be signing any agreements. 2 days later, my mom called 6 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Then she left a voicemail. It started calm. Then it didn't. She said I was sabotaging the family's financial goals. That Ethan needed to learn his place. That if I kept pushing, I'd regret it. Then she said the part that locked in everything I needed to hear. You're lucky we didn't say worse. He was out of line and you both need to learn some humility. She admitted it. Finally. She wasn't sorry. She felt justified. I forwarded the voicemail to Ryan. No comment. Just sent it. An hour later he texted, we're done. Officially. And then something I hadn't predicted happened. The next evening Ryan and his wife came over. With all of the Christmas presents our parents had dropped off for their kids. Still wrapped. They placed them on my living room floor. Ryan said if they're going to treat your kid like a stranger, they don't get to spoil mine. We opened them together. My niece and nephew played with Ethan like nothing was wrong. They laughed, shared, took turns. No tension. No awkward explanations. Ethan picked up a box labeled to our perfect grandson, and looked at me. I nodded. Go ahead. Inside was a remote-controlled drone. Brand new. Top of the line. He looked up at Ryan surprised. Ryan just smiled and said, guess it found the right kid after all. Later that night after the kids were asleep, Ryan told me something else. He said Dad had called him angry, cold, and paranoid. Asked if I was mentally stable. Asked if Ryan thought I needed intervention. Ryan told him no. That I was the most stable person in the family. Then he told him not to call again. I stood there in my kitchen, arms crossed, watching snow start to fall outside. I felt calm. Steady. For the first time in years. But I knew it wouldn't last. They weren't used to losing. And I could feel it. Something bigger was coming. I just didn't expect it to come on my brother's birthday. Ryan's birthday fell on January 7th, and for years, it was the only family gathering that ever felt remotely genuine. No games, no speeches, no side comments about who brought what or whose child was more polite. Just pizza, cake, and people relaxing in sweatpants instead of pretending to be a Christmas card. This year Ryan said he wasn't doing anything. No dinner, no gathering. Said he just wanted to keep things quiet. I told him we'd swing by with cupcakes, nothing big. He said that sounded perfect. But our parents had other plans. At 5:41 p.m. that day, while Ethan and I were halfway to Ryan's house with a tray of confetti cupcakes, I got a notification on my phone. A new post on Facebook. From my mom. It was a photo of the lake house, fully decorated, string lights, a big happy birthday banner and 2 long tables covered in food. The caption read, "Surprise party for our amazing son. Couldn't let the day go by without celebrating the man who holds our family together." He tagged Ryan. She tagged his wife. She tagged all 3 of their kids. He did not tag me. I called Ryan. He picked up on the first ring and said, "What the hell is this?" They hadn't told him. They hadn't told his wife. They hadn't even asked if he wanted it. They just threw a party and announced it online, assuming they could still force us all into one space and play pretend. When we got to his house, he was livid. His phone was blowing up with messages from family friends who had already RSVP'd or were asking what time to show up. His wife was trying to keep it together for the kids, who had just realized there was a party happening, and they hadn't been invited by their own grandparents, just publicly declared as guests. Ryan paced for a bit, then looked at me and said, "Let's go." I asked where. He said, "To the party. We're not crashing it. We're reclaiming it." I didn't expect him to actually do it. But 20 minutes later we pulled into the lake house driveway. Ethan stayed in the car with his cousins watching a movie. Ryan told them we'd be right back. The place was packed. Cars lined the driveway. The music was low and safe, something from a playlist my mom probably labeled family event. I recognized a few distant relatives, a couple neighbors and one of my mom's wine club friends near the patio. My mom saw us first. Her face did that strange flicker, shock then joy then worry. She opened her mouth, probably to say something overly sweet and fake, but Ryan beat her to it. "Why did you post a fake party online and make it look like I planned it?" She blinked. Then looked past him toward me. "We wanted to surprise you." He stepped forward. "You don't get to use me to stage some family redemption tour just because you messed up with Laura and Ethan. That's not how this works anymore." My dad appeared behind her. Silent. Staring. Ryan turned to the crowd, loud enough to get attention. "This wasn't my idea. And if any of you came here thinking this was a real family event, you've been misled." People looked confused. A few murmured. Someone chuckled like it was a joke. My mom tried to talk over him. You wanted a photo op," he said. "You wanted a reset button. But this family isn't whole anymore. And if you keep pretending, you're going to end up alone at tables you set for people who stopped showing up years ago." We left. Just turned around and walked back to the car. On the drive home, Ethan asked if the party was weird. I said yeah. It was. But we didn't stay long. Later that night around 11:30 I got a message. My mom again. "You're destroying this family. Are you happy now? You've turned Ryan against us. I hope your bitterness was worth it." I didn't reply. But Ryan did. He replied on the group thread she hadn't realized we were both still in. He said, "If you ever speak to Laura like that again, you'll find yourself cut off permanently. From us, from the trust, from the grandkids. This was your last chance to act like a parent. You failed." She didn't respond. Neither did my dad. But I knew what was coming next. The money. The trust. The real pain. Because she just lost control. And that meant the Real storm was about to hit. It started quietly like it always does with them, before the begging, before the shame. 3 days after Ryan's birthday party imploded, I woke up to an email from the trust administrator. Subject line, "Trust amendment, signature complete." I didn't even need to open it. I already knew what it meant. Ryan had done it. He followed through. When I read the contents, it was all there in black and white. The trust had been formally split. I was now sole controller of my portion, completely separate from my parents. Their access to shared assets was removed. And at the bottom of the document, one more unexpected clause. Effective immediately, beneficiaries Robert and Diane James are removed from future disbursements at the discretion of the co-trustee. Ryan hadn't just helped me leave. He cut them off. Not a warning. Not a temporary freeze. A final legal boundary. I called him. He answered on the second ring. I didn't say anything right away. He just said they'll be at your door before sunset. Just be ready. He was right. At 4:17 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Not frantic. One knock. Then nothing. I looked through the peephole. It was my parents. Standing there like strangers. Not on the porch, not even stepping up to the door. Just on the sidewalk like they weren't sure if they belonged anymore. I opened the front door but didn't step out. My mom smiled like we were still playing a game. He said, "Can we talk for a minute?" I said, "About what?" My dad finally spoke. "This is family. Family doesn't handle things through lawyers." I told him that was funny coming from a man who used contracts and mortgages as weapons. My mom stepped forward a little. "We just want to find a way back. We didn't mean for things to go this far." I asked her what she did mean then. When she told my son he hadn't earned dessert. When she mocked me in emails. When she used my brother's birthday to stage a public image reset. She didn't answer. She just lowered her voice and said, "We'll apologize. To Ethan. We're ready to admit we were wrong." I waited. Nothing else. No actual apology. No ownership. Just an offer to perform one. I said, "We don't need that anymore. You're a lesson, not a legacy." And I closed the door. No shouting. No threats. Just the end. That night she sent a long email. 5 paragraphs of melodrama. She wrote about forgiveness and how hurt she felt and how family should stick together. She claimed Ryan was being manipulated by me. She said we were stealing their future. Then in the last sentence she wrote, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Ryan. He replied 10 minutes later. "Effective immediately, I've removed their access to the contingency fund. They're out of the trust completely. Final distribution will be issued by next quarter, and then it's done." I just stared at that message. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I felt something heavier. Closure. It wasn't clean. It wasn't triumphant. It was just real. A few days later Ryan invited us over. Just him, his wife, the kids, and us. Ethan helped make lemon bars, his favorite. When we got there, Ryan was already setting up the backyard with string lights and lawn chairs. It wasn't a celebration, it was just peace. During dinner the kids made their own table out of blankets and pillows in the living room. No rules, no stiffness. Just laughter and crumbs everywhere. At one point Ryan raised his glass and said quietly, "To choosing peace even when it costs us blood." Everyone clinked glasses. Even Ethan with his juice. After dinner we sat in the yard listening to the kids giggle in the dark, catching fireflies. I checked my phone one last time. 2 missed calls from my mom. No voicemail. That was her final attempt. No words. No real apology. Just silence and expectation. I didn't call back. Because for the first time, we weren't the ones waiting to be loved. We were the ones who had moved on. And that was the real revenge. We didn't need them. Not anymore. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. No more emails. No voicemails. No surprise visits. Just silence. The kind of silence that only comes when people realize they've truly lost control. I'd half expected my mom to try one last manipulation, maybe through a third cousin or mutual friend, but nothing ever came. Ethan didn't ask about them. Not once. He spent his afternoons helping me repaint the guest room, laughing when he accidentally dipped his elbow in the paint tray. He talked about school, soccer, the new book series Ryan's daughter got him into. Life went on, simple and unburdened. One evening I sat on the porch with a cup of tea watching Ethan and Ryan's kids draw chalk monsters on the driveway. I thought about how much noise my parents used to take up in my mind. How every decision, every moment, used to come with the invisible pressure of what they'd think, what they'd say. And now for the first time the quiet wasn't heavy. It was freedom. It didn't matter if they ever understood what they lost. What mattered was that I had stopped asking them to care.